Recording in progress.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this last council meeting of 2024 to order. I understand that we've had 28 council meetings this year, so this is number 28. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'll call the meeting to order, and I will ask anybody speaking, state your name, address the podium into the mic, state your name, and speak into the mic, please. Any disclosure of pecuniary interests under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act this evening? Councillor Dirksen.
Hi, my name's Judy Dirksen and I'm speaking into the mic.
Thank you very much, Judy Dirksen.
I have pecuniary interest with item number 9B2, the operating budget compensation portion of Public Works winter control only. And the reason is that my beloved husband is employed part-time for winter control activities here in the town of Minto.
Thank you very much. We'll deal with that when the time comes. Okay, thank you. So I've got a resolution moved by Councillor Gunson, second by Councillor Dirksen, that minutes of the town of Minto, December 3rd, 2024 regular council meeting, the November 5th, 2025 operating budget meeting, and the November 26th, 2024 capital budget meeting be approved. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, second by Councillor Zimmerman, that the town of Minto Council convenes into the committee of the whole. All in favor of that motion? That's carried as well. Thank you. So tonight we do have a public meeting. ZBA 2024-10, 6739 Wellington Road 109, Tiviotdale. It's the Taylor property. I will act as the chair of this public meeting. And I'll ask, call the meeting to order, and I'll ask Clerk McRobb to ensure that any member of the public present is recorded on the attendance record. So the attendance record is back there. I'm hoping that everybody signed in. You were supposed to say that to Annalene, but.
Sorry, yes. If anyone even on their way out can sign in if you're here for that public meeting. Thank you.
Okay. So if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the town of Minto before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the town of Minto to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of the appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So I'll ask Clerk McRobb to state the municipal address and the legal description of the property.
Thank you, Mayor Turton. The property subject to the proposed amendment is located at Concession D, Part Lot 114, Registered Plan 61R8320, Part 1 in the town of Minto. The subject property is approximately 8.26 hectare or 20.41 acres in size. The purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject lands from agricultural site-specific A-61 to rural industrial site-specific RIN-X to facilitate the proposed draft plan of subdivision 23T-24005. The notices were mailed to the property owners within 400 feet or 120 meters of the subject property, as well as the applicable agencies, and posted on the subject property on November 27, 2024. Reports were received from Zach Prince, Senior Planner for Wellington County, and Sama, Planning Coordinator for the town of Minto, and I believe there's correspondence from Judy Wass as well. And that's all.
Thank you, Clerk McRobb. So I'm going to ask our county planner to provide comments regarding the proposed amendment to the comprehensive zoning bylaw number 01-86. And Zach Prince, if you don't mind just taking a moment and introducing yourself. First time you've been in our council chambers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Thanks for having me today. It's my first council meeting here as the county planner representing the town of Minto, so hopefully far from my last. But it's a pleasure to introduce the zoning bylaw amendment today. As Ms. McRobb mentioned, it also accompanying the application is a plan of subdivision for 12 industrial lots. So the application before council is an industrial development in Tiviotdale. Tonight's public meeting is an opportunity to hear feedback from the public regarding the proposed development. The site-specific use includes proposing additional uses in the RIN zone and restricting some uses to assist with compatibility concerns raised in the applicant's noise study. The application's been reviewed by staff, agencies, and external consultants. Our review will continue after this meeting. Planning staff will prepare a recommendation report and draft plan conditions for council's consideration following.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll ask our Director of Building and Planning Services, Mr. Terry Kuipers, to add a few comments.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Turton. The only thing I want to mention in addition to Zach's report is that being this is a plan of subdivision, the proposed stormwater management pond and the road will be owned by the town, and future maintenance will be on behalf of the town down the road, including any infrastructure, so ditches, lights. Nothing out of the normal from any subdivision, but I just wanted to mention that. With regards to the reduced industrial activity setback that is requested, that does not alleviate the development from complying with our normal setbacks within an industrial park. It actually aligns with how we deal with our in-town heavier industrial zone with regards to setback to residential. Any of the studies that they have to undergo to make sure there's no compatibility issues will be addressed through the plan of subdivision. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, one of the other setback reliefs that they're proposing is a zero setback to the municipal drains that bisect the property. In the planning justification report, in order to allow for our maintenance of that infrastructure, they are proposing easements in lieu of the setback. So we still will have an opportunity to work on those pipes as needed. So again, after everyone has an opportunity to speak, I'll am more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Terry. Now we'll call on the owner applicant to provide comments. Pierre Chavin, planner of MHBC. Welcome, Pierre.
Is it on?
On? Oh, there we go. I got the green light. I do have a slide deck. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of the public. My name is Pierre Chauvin. I'm with MHBC Planning. With me this evening is the owner. Doug is sitting here with me, and I have a few slides, and I just wanted to kind of expand upon what Zach and Terry have provided to you already. And maybe if I could just go to the next slide in terms of the site area, we all know it's in Tiviotdale. It's a vacant lot, currently in agriculture right now. It's about 20 acres in size. There's a healthy amount of frontage along the county road 109. It's just north of Highway 123, just north of the roundabout there. It's been designated for a number of years as hamlet, and that hamlet designation does permit a broad range of mix of industrial and rural type of uses, and that's exactly what this plan of subdivision is all about. Next slide. This is just sort of a rendering of the plan of subdivision. As Terry mentioned, this is a public road. The road will actually be designed, because it's an industrial road, a bit wider than their typical 20-meter right-of-way. It's a 23-meter right-of-way. So it's an extra wide road that will allow for landscaping on either side of the road. The lots, there's 12 lots that are all exceed sort of the minimum 1 acre size. They're 1 to 2 acres in size. So we wanted some variety to provide to the market so that there are people who have, if they have different needs, they have the ability to purchase different size lots. Obviously, the access from the public road is off of County Road 109. There is a stormwater management pond contemplated that will be, as Terry mentioned, conveyed ultimately to the municipality. Through the design of the subdivision, the municipal drain will be relocated, and there will be a process. There is a process through the Drainage Act to go through that And we fully expect that'll be a requirement under the draft approval conditions to deal with, go through that process under the Drainage Act. And all the lots will be privately serviced, so they're large enough to have their own septic and well. And as you've heard, this is both the plan of subdivision application and zone change application that is being processed concurrently. Next slide. So as I've already mentioned, these lands, as you can see on this slide, Teviot Dale is identified in yellow. That's the urban area designation out of your county, the county's official plan. We're within that designation, and that designation, as I mentioned, does provide for a broad range of commercial, small-scale industrial uses, as well as even residential uses. But we are certainly, we're not proposing residential uses. This is entirely sort of, I would say, industrial and light industrial type of uses that are being contemplated here. As I mentioned, again, these are all contemplated to be on private services. Next slide. We have completed a noise study, and the land use compatibility is an issue, as you can appreciate, with respect to this type of use. There are a couple sensitive land uses, i.e. residential uses within proximity to this development. We've identified them. You can see them on this slide. It's a little hard to tell with the line work, but there's one fronting on to Highway 123, as well as one fronting onto County Road 109 next to the OPP station. And there are certain guidelines and requirements within the province that the province has established in terms of how do we classify certain types of industrial uses. And in the province, they classify industrial uses in terms of 3 different classifications, 1, 2, and 3. 3 being the most intensive type of heavy industrial manufacturing type of processes. That's not what is being proposed here. 2 and 1 are sort of the more, 1 being the lowest light industrial type of uses, and 2 is somewhere in between. And that's really what we're focusing on, is those lighter industrial uses. And in fact, the noise study recommended, because of the sensitive land uses, in particular, the home that's fronting onto 109, I believe someone's here to speak to that tonight. We've implemented certain restrictions in the range of uses for those lots that are closest to that dwelling. And in fact, recommending through the draft approval conditions that further noise studies be completed at site plan when an actual building and use is put forward. We'll be able to analyze that even closer at that point to ensure that the use and activities on that property are compatible with those sensitive land uses. So we believe we've done the appropriate amount of studies to ensure that compatibility. Again, staff are reviewing that, and we'll certainly be working with them and responding to any comments they may have on that. So in that regard, there's a accompanying zone change application with this subdivision application, and the area in pink is what's being proposed as the rural industrial, with an exception, those exceptions being the reductions in the residential setback requirements, and the setback to the drain, as Terry spoke of. The swim or the stormwater management block, apologize, I use swim as an acronym a lot, but it's not meant for swimming, so it's actually stormwater management block will be zoned open space, and with an exception to only permit that use. We do have a small little sliver of land that extends out to County Road 123 that we're proposing to be rezoned as there is an easement over top of that for drainage. That is not going to change, but we're proposing to recommending it to be zoned as future development. And we see the potential for that lands to be perhaps conveyed in the future to the adjacent property owner. But really, there's no functionality to this plan of subdivision. So we've tried to plan for the future in the sense that in the fullness of time, if somebody came forward with something on the adjacent lands, then they can consolidate it with that parcel. But again, I think whether it's in the plan or subdivision or not, I think Personally, we believe it makes sense to include it because we can attach conditions such as what I'm talking about in terms of consolidating it with adjacent properties through the plan of subdivision process. As I mentioned, the rural industrial exception zones do permit, where we are restricting certain types of uses to be permitted because of those sensitive uses. And we're also adding some more commercial uses. I note that county staff are suggesting that perhaps a highway zone, highway commercial zone be implemented on the one lot fronting onto the highway. We have no issue with that. That's the direction. And certainly it permits all the other lots south of us are in that same zoning category. So certainly have no issue with that. Next slide, please. So we've have, as you heard, we not only prepared a noise study, but we've also prepared a servicing and preliminary septic study to demonstrate the serviceability of these lands on private services, a stormwater management report to, again, to deal with the rerouting of municipal drain number 59. And again, that will be done through any changes to that drain will have to be done through the Municipal Drainage Act. And lastly, we also completed a transportation brief, which is being reviewed by county staff in terms of the impacts on County Road 109. At this point in time, there are no road improvements contemplated for the intersection with this new road and County Road 109 as a result of this development. But again, as we work through this process with county staff, we'll see if that continues to hold true. Not listed on that slide, though, was an archaeological study, so that was also has been completed and filed with the ministry. So those are my just general comments in terms of the design. I would say as a planner, I'd be remiss in not saying these next words, but we believe, or I believe, that this plan of subdivision is consistent with the provincial planning statement of 2024, which has been updated and implemented as of October of this year, and also conforms with the county's official plan and generally meets the designation requirements of the hamlet designation. It's certainly been contemplated for development for a number of years, obviously being included as part of the hamlet for many years at Tiviotdale. And this type of use is consistent and conforms with, or it's compatible with a lot of the uses that are already there. And we've prepared those studies to ensure that there will be compatibility with those sensitive land uses. And by doing so, we've also implemented certain zoning regulations. And we also anticipate there'll be some conditions related to that to deal with in the draft plan of subdivision to deal with those compatibility issues. So those are my comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions now or reserve them for after the public have their say.
Okay, thank you, Pierre. We'll have questions in a moment.
Thank you.
So I'm going to open the floor to request any persons wishing to speak to the application. Come forward. Welcome, Judy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Judy Wass, and I live at 6733 Wellington Road 109. I'm also part lot 114 concession D next door to the properties in question. I had more than a few questions originally. But after reading some reports and that sort of thing, that kind of put my mind at ease. I still have some issues that I'd like to bring up. I was concerned about the loss of agricultural land. We are consistently taking up agricultural land for industrial. And it just seems that the the green space is kind of going by the wayside. I just wanted to make that point. And I wasn't sure what the term rural industrial was. I always thought it's either rural or it's either industrial, and I wasn't sure just what the difference was between those two terms. Another issue was my property value. I've lived where I am right now for 32 years. And I didn't realize, I guess, at the time, that there might at some point be something built on either side of me. I have the OPP on the one side of me now, which is very nice. The landscape between my house and them is also really nice, very nice to the eye. But I'm not sure that I would have purchased my home if I thought at one point I might be living next to industrial. I'm concerned about my property value if I wanted to resell my house. If I were looking at a property, if I was looking for a little country property, I'm not sure that I would want to buy something that was next door to industrial. Now I noticed too that I was concerned about the noise that there might be, but I know that there has been a noise study done. Unfortunately, as was mentioned, I think that when something hasn't been built yet, it's hard to do a study on that particular thing. I did think while I was looking through my information and trying to figure out what might be a good kind of partition, if you will, between the two properties. And I looked into something that I hadn't heard of before called a berm. And it's just kind of like a built-up hill. And they usually put trees on top of it, usually in between properties that are close together in larger municipalities. They would maybe put up like a cement type wall or brick type thing. But I don't suspect that would be an option here. But I do think that the berm would be a really good, it would be good for noise, aesthetics, and I don't know, just it was just something that I came up with that I thought might work in this situation. Well, I think that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Judy. So you picked a perfect time to be here. So it's a good time to learn all about this stuff. So thank you. Yep, go ahead, Alex. You're next.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Turton. My name is Alex Beatty. I'm a consultant working out of Arthur, Ontario, and I'm here representing Chalmers Fuels this evening. Nick Brower, the president of Chalmers Fuels, is here with me as well. I wonder if whoever is controlling the slides, oh, actually it's there. If you see the site designated as M1-41, that is the Chalmers property. And one of the things that we do and are required to do under provincial regulation is that every propane distribution site, or what we call a bulk plant, is required to have a risk and safety management plan. And it's based on land use planning. And so when our colleague here was talking about land use planning, it's very familiar to us, and it's exactly why these types of meetings are good and beneficial, so we can talk about what's going on in our local neighborhood. I'm looking at the agenda, and on page 22, I believe it is, just let me get to the bottom of the page, 23, you will see that there's a heading called Land Use Compatibility and the Permitted Uses. And the handout that I gave to council and staff, or that was photocopied and handed out to each one of you, this is an abbreviated form of the whole risk and safety management plan, the complete risk and safety management plan that is required by TSSA, who is the provincial regulator for propane licensing. The complete one is in about a 3-inch binder. There's a lot of detail, there's a lot of work, engineering work that goes into it to assess what is compatible land use planning with a propane bulk plant. And so as we were reading through the agenda, Nick noted on page 23 under the Minto zoning bylaw, there is a table. And yep, and if you, I'll just here, commercial school. The commercial school or studio was something that pricked up our ears, because in this handout that you've received, what you will find is on the 3rd page, there is a piece right out of the implementation guidelines for risk and safety management plans. And you'll see at the extreme right of that page, there is a designation where we can have schools, hospitals, homes for the aged, those types of public receptors. It moves on in and it comes into high density residential, then low density residential, and finally industrial land and no other land use. If you turn to page 3, you will see the results. It's the big fold-out page. What you will see is the actual result of the engineering work that was completed on this facility. And starting at the outside edge with the red circle, that signifies schools, homes for the aged, and hospitals cannot be inside of that red contour. And as you can see, I haven't superimposed, but if you're familiar enough with the proposed development and the zoning change, you will see that the red circle pretty much encompasses the entire lot. So that is something that we're certainly concerned about. When we first received notification and we heard that this was going to be an industrial development, Nick contacted me, said, "What do you think?" And I said, typically industrial are not problematic with your type of development. We should go to the meeting, but probably won't have anything to say. And then when we received the agenda, we did notice this thing about the schools. I have talked to our colleague, and we've had some discussion already, and with Terry, is it? Yep, Terry. And so we're prepared at this point in time to enter into some kind of discussion. Certainly Chalmers Fuels wants to be a good corporate citizen and does not want to hinder development, but we certainly want to make sure that we don't run into problems after the fact. So we really appreciate this opportunity to share what we know. And if you look at page 41, you will see that this is actually the page from the risk engineer, and it was submitted to TSSA. And this says that everything that we currently have meets the required setback standards for risk and safety management plan under the TSSA Act, under OREG 21101. There are requirements, and this site currently meets those requirements. And on the last 2 pages, just as an FYI, this is the letter showing that TSSA has accepted this facility, and the fact that Nick has a license hanging on his wall and is doing business further proves that the site is in compliance currently, and we just don't want something to happen that would throw a wrench into those operations. So with that, Nick is the president of Chalmers Fuels, and is there anything that you wanted to add, Nick? Or did I kind of? Okay, okay.
Thank you very much, Alex, Nick, for coming. I'm sure that's important to us. Is there anyone else wanting to speak in reference to this application? Hearing none, then I'm going to open it up to council for opportunity to ask questions. Councillor Pontovitz, so if you want to direct your question to somebody and they could approach the mic, that would be good.
Yes,
Councillor Pontovitz?
Thank you, Mayor Turton. Actually, I have a question for Pierre, and then I have a question for Terry as well. So maybe just a question in regards to, you mentioned this, the septic system there. Was there a nitrate study done on the property?
Through your, Mr. Mayor, yes, there was a D55 study done as part of the functional servicing study.
Okay, I didn't see it mentioned in your report here, so I just thought I'd ask.
Yep.
There's no concerns with the nitrate?
By recollection, I don't recall there was any concerns. They're all minimum one acre lots, so.
Okay. I wasn't sure what kind of soils were on site there, but yeah, I'm glad to hear you had that done. Thank you. And I had a question for Terry. In your report, Terry, you referred to there's blocks 15, 16, and 17 as a reserve 0.3 meter. What's the purpose of those?
Oh, those are 1-foot reserves to prevent legal access over that property to hypothetically 123.
But they go all the way along the backyards of all the lots and then,
And that's again to prevent access from those lots to the adjacent properties.
okay. Okay. Usually I see that on a road. There's usually a reserve from a road to, for future purposes. I guess they put a reserve on there, but I never seen one along the back of a property.
So, or that could be drainage as well.
Okay.
I've got to check the functional servicing report, but it may be backyard drainage as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott, go ahead.
Yes, Terry, probably you can answer this question. We were concerned about different institutions coming in and not being able there because of the propane and such like. So my question is how is that going to be handled? Are we going to say this is opened up for everything? Are we going to exclude that right from the start? Or will they, as somebody applies for a lot, says that they're putting in a school or whatever, will you stop that, or how's that working?
So with respect to what Mr. Beatty brought up with the school, one of the things, again, as mentioned, I do want discussions prior or with both the owner as well as Chalmers before bringing a subsequent report back to council. One thing I have encountered with different legislations is that the definitions differ within each. So hypothetically, or just as an example, a parochial school, so a private school, development charges apply to it because under the definition of a school in the Development Charge Act, it's not a school. Whereas it has to be registered with the Ministry of Education. So one thing as part of the background work that we're going to be doing is to determine whether or not under TSSA legislation, a commercial school is under that high hazard use that the concern was brought forward. If it is a concern, again, it would be something that we would work through with both the applicant as well as Chalmers to determine what we do, whether that's eliminated from a permitted use or not. If it's not a permitted use when the bylaws comes forward for approval, if there was a commercial school come forward, so an example of a commercial school would be like a fine arts studio or a karate school or even a driver training school for that matter. If a use such as that came forward to us, then we would refuse to issue it because it contravenes the zoning bylaw. If that answered your question.
Yes, thanks.
Okay.
Just
Yeah, go
one
ahead.
more. And
Councillor
for you,
Elliott, yeah.
Pierre, would you entertain putting a berm at the edge of your property to support Judy's concerns?
The short answer is yes. I think we need to look at the design. There's certainly room on, you look at the backside of, I'm sorry, I didn't get the last name. Is it Watt? Judy's property. There's room to provide a berm there along lot 10. There's no, not sure how high we're talking about, what kind of height we're talking about, but if it's just strictly for landscaping and putting some trees on there, I don't think that that would be an issue from our perspective. It makes sense. Even a fence could do the same job. If it's really just a physical barrier or a visual barrier, we could look at a fence or berm or a combination of something. So whereas on the southern side where the road is, I mentioned the fact that it is a 23-meter wide right of way, which is a pretty wide standard. And there's likely a lot of room within that standard to do landscaping within the municipal boulevard. Having said that, if there's need to do some more, provide more land, we could probably shift the road down to do that and provide a berm. Again, it really depends on the height. Like I said, when the 3-to-1 side slopes, a 3-foot berm is going to be about 10 feet wide. So it takes up land. And, when we're trying to be efficient with our land, that's what we'll kind of have to balance that. But I hear the concern, and we'll take it back and see what we can do to accommodate it. And like I said, fence, berm, planting, those are all on the table for sure.
All right.
And to answer your other comment with respect to the commercial school, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Go right ahead, sir.
We're not adverse to deleting that as a use. So if that becomes an issue.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? So if you got pardon my ignorance, but the commercial recreation use, can you give us an example on that? We'll go on to the next question, Terry.
Yes, I'll
Yeah,
take that
okay.
one up for you.
Go ahead, Alex. I'll give you a second there.
Just to address Councillor Elliott's comment about how do we proceed, and I really appreciate your offer there, Pierre, that's great. But you had also suggested that there's some involvement every time there's a site plan with one of these properties, and I wonder if that's something that we could ask that Chalmers be notified, just in case something does happen and it slides through and it is something that's going to be problematic for our risk contours, if we could have Chalmers added to that list of any future development on any of those specific properties and make sure it does comply with our regulation.
Who wants to speak to that request?
I apologize. I was
No,
doing
that's
some
fine.
digging on the other one. Sorry, Alex, the question.
There was a comment from Pierre about him getting notification of any development for the noise. And I wonder if Chalmers could also be notified if there's any development specifically on a site so that we get the opportunity to say, oh, yeah, this is a problem with us. Is that something that we can add Chalmers to that list? And I don't need the answer right now.
Okay, I
Yep.
will have to look into who we can provide what sort of documentation to, but yeah,
Okay.
I'll make a note of that for sure.
Thank you.
With respect to the commercial recreational use, it's not a defined term. So we don't have anything nailed down in terms of what that means or doesn't mean. I would assume it would be like a gym sort of type of use. But again, we don't have it defined in the zoning bylaw, so
Yep.
that would be something we'd be working with the applicant to specify what that means.
Okay, thank you. That the little sliver of land on the west side, so somebody obviously had a thought there. What were they thinking in reference to that? Who said-
Yes. No, I
Okay.
honestly, I don't know what the purpose of that
Yep.
strip is, whether was contemplated from some sort of an egress or to potentially allow for two access points, but I don't honestly know.
Okay. Got a couple of questions here then from Judy. Just the rural industrial. Have you got a comment for that, Terry, or whoever?
Yes. So typically what that refers to is more of a light industrial or more of a drier industrial than what would be permitted within an urban center with the lack of both municipal water and sanitary facilities. So it doesn't specify it has to be out in a rural or hamlet area, but the permitted uses are more for a drier industrial than what the M1 or our normal industrial zone provisions are.
Okay, thank you. A couple other items then, the loss of agricultural land, property values. Anybody want to comment on those?
Yep,
two?
I can field that as well.
Thank you.
So the official plan designation of this land has been a hamlet industrial designation for as long as I've been here. So it wouldn't be included within Ontario's agricultural land-based calculation. It's already been designated as something else. So although it is currently cultivated, that was not the intent with what that property's long-term use would be.
Okay, and I'm sure it's pure speculation in reference to property values. I mean, how do you know?
I can't comment on that one.
Okay. I think we've answered your questions.
The only one,
Up until that last one, it's kind of iffy.
one thing I can add with respect to the noise / berm, it is in our zoning bylaw that a buffer needs to be provided between an industrial zone and a residential zone. And that can comprise of berm, fence, landscaping, a combination thereof. So there is that requirement against the R1A zone, which is Judy's property.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. Pierre, go ahead.
If you may, I can try to offer some assistance on that property value question. Unfortunately, it's typically not, it comes up a lot during any land use change, and it's not really a planning matter per se. It's certainly something that people are concerned about, but when it comes to land use planning changes, it's not something that is typically factored into making a decision with respect to land use. Having said that, what you typically try to do to help mitigate, what you try to do is help mitigate the impacts. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here with this type of use relative to her home, is coming up with mitigation measures from a noise perspective to mitigate the impact. We talked about a berm, talked about fencing, landscaping, reduction in changes of uses. So those are all things that will help mitigate the impact that may have an effect on property value. But again, that's not really a land use planning matter. There's many things that affect property values, and in fact, if anything, they're going up with the cost of land. So, and you can see that probably in your taxes. So in any event, that's what we try to do in a land use planning world, is try to mitigate those impacts to help alleviate those concerns. Hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zimmerman, go ahead.
We were talking about water, and we're talking about 12 new wells, one per lot. Is that correct?
Under MOE's guidelines, you can share up to 5 private properties can share a single well before they have to start doing testing that the town has to do for our well system. So there could be, yes, 12
Is
individual
there
wells.
going to be some provision that if something happens to Judy's well, that she's compensated for that, or?
That I cannot answer at the moment. I don't know what sort of studies would be asked for, can be asked
Okay.
for with respect to that.
Well, that would be a concern that, for no fault of her own, if her well were to go dry because of new wells being drilled very close to her. So
That'll be something I'll have to look into and bring back in my subsequent report.
Thank you.
Terry, is that similar with septic? One septic bed per lot, or can different owners use one for 3 lots or whatever?
No, the only time that that can happen is if it's a communal septic system. And then there would be, under a plan of subdivision, that communal septic system would be owned and operated by the town. It would fall under MOE's regulations opposed to the Ontario Building Code. So short answer, with the septic report that was submitted, they are looking at individual septics per lot. There are requirements for clearances between septic systems and wells for both on the same property as well as wells off-site to a septic on a property. So that is one thing that, don't think at the plan of subdivision stage we'd be looking at that, but definitely at the building permit stage to ensure that those clearances are maintained.
Okay. All right, is there other questions? Is there other responses? Okay. Here, you're good? Okay. Zach, Terry, we're good then? Okay. So I'm going to state the following. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Council of the Town of Minto in respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application, you must make a written request to the clerk at the Town of Minto, 5941 Highway 89, Hairston, Ontario, NOG 1Z0, or by email at anneleen@town.minto.on.ca. And if there's no further comments, then I'm going to adjourn the public meeting. So thank you for being here, you folks. You can stay or leave or whatever you want. Thank you.
Yes, please sign the sheet at the back if you hadn't prior.
So we have no delegations this evening, but we're at public question period. And the mayor, as chair of the meeting, has a duty to preserve order and maintain decorum throughout the meeting. Although council strives to hear and be responsive to residential concerns in order to preserve order, maintain decorum, and comply with the town's procedural bylaw, I wish to caution any participants in question period that one, questions that use discourteous language will not be permitted. Questions that seek policies or bylaws outside of the town's jurisdiction, including policies or bylaws that might violate human rights legislation, will not be permitted. Anything that constitutes speeches or statements not in the form of a question will not be permitted. And repeat questions will not be permitted, including the repetition of questions from prior meetings. And all persons shall be limited to no more than 2 questions. So, public question period is on us. Hearing none, seeing none, we'll move on to correspondence. I have a recommendation moved by Councillor Potnovitz, seconded by Councillor Elliott, that council receive the correspondence as information. We have 2 items on the agenda this evening. Anybody interested in either one of those? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of accepting the correspondence? That's carried. Thank you. We're going to move along to committee minutes for approval, the economic development minutes of December 5th, and I'll ask Active Director Belinda Wick-Graham.
Thank you, Mayor
Present.
Turton. I
Thank
will
you.
be brief. The committee met on December 5th and reviewed all of the great Downtown Revitalization Committee meeting minutes from September. Wes was there to present the building update for the year to date, and things had improved since he was there in August, so that was nice to hear. Charlene also was on hand from the Workforce Planning Board and provided us an update, and unfortunately the unemployment rate has shifted upwards. I believe we're now at 6.9%, and previously it was 5.9 this summer. We reviewed the terms of reference, and that'll be coming back at our next meeting in March is when they meet again. So we have some changes we want to make to that. We're happy to report that we do have an ag representative now. So that will be on Annalene's appointment bylaw later. So we're sad to see Mr. Rob McLaughlin leave us. He's been a great member from C&M Seeds on the committee for many years, but we would look forward to welcoming Catherine Noble from the Wellington Federation of Agriculture. We just went through all of our dates and what corporate call visits we would like to be making next year. The committee had their roundtable, lots of positive news reports. We were all comparing December 23 to December 24, and things were looking a lot better at this meeting than they were last year in December. We ratified our community improvement grants, and then also have a recommendation to support a facade grant for 29 Elora Street North in Clifford. And that wrapped up our meeting. If there's any questions?
Any questions for Belinda? Okay, you want to move on to the next ones, or are you going to lump these all in and we'll do them all?
There's only one.
There's, okay,
Sorry.
all right. Then I'm going to call the question. All in favor of accepting that report? That's carried. Thank you.
Sorry. For you, Mayor Turton, if we can
Yep.
just, do you mind if I read out the motion just for my minutes?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Dirksen, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that the Council of the Town of Minto receive the Economic Development and Planning Committee minutes of December 5th, 2024 for information and approves any recommendation contained therein.
Okay, I'm going to call the question again because I didn't ask the question. I apologize. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, staff reports. Okay, so I'm going to ask Mr. Zach Prince again to talk about the Wellington County Planning Department OP 2024, the official plan amendment, part lot 61, concession D, 41 Park Street, Clifford. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Council may recall there was a public meeting for this property on November 8th, 2024. The report in front of you today is for endorsement of the official plan amendment related to the development of residential uses on this property. There's also a zoning application and plan of subdivision. At this time, it's just the official plan amendment, which also reflects a change that was provided through the county's official plan amendment 123, which was supported by council as well. So the applicant has, and this was maybe explained at the November 8th meeting, but I'll just reiterate it, the applicant has proceeded with their own application at this time. So what we're asking today is council support to bring this amendment to the county, to the Land Division Committee and County Council.
Okay, thank you. I have a recommendation moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Pottovitz. Council Town of Minto receives the report regarding draft official plan amendment for 41 Park Street in Clifford, prepared by County of Wellington Planning Department as information. Further, that the council supports this official planned amendment as proposed. Questions for Zach? Hearing none. Let you off easy. I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And I'm going to pass the chair to Councillor Dirksen.
Thank you, Mayor Turton. We have one, kind of two, I guess, items on the finance agenda tonight, but it is a big one, and I'll turn it over to our treasurer, Gordon.
Great. Thank you, Chair Dirksen. As you say, just one report, but probably the most important one we do of the year. So we're completing the budget process. You'll remember we started with the operating budget a little over a month ago on November 5th. Had a discussion on that, and again, that was a little earlier, and some subsequent information has come through, and we've incorporated that. I presented an update on that on November 26th, when we also discussed the capital budget. And then a week later, we had our public open house, and then we moved on. So there's no major changes. Everything there is overall as presented, especially in total. As you know, we had a couple of grant announcements. We had some good news on the OMPF, and then a little bit of bad news on a couple of other expense items such as conservation levies and tax write-offs, and we've incorporated them and balanced it out through reserve transfers. So the other good news is I've always been kind of loath to say, well, what the effect on an individual house, which is what we all want to know. However, on Friday, we now have preliminary tax rates. And again, I'll say preliminary because they're not approved by the county yet, but we have incorporated them. And we also have the physical return roll, which we found out is not exactly the same as the electronic roll that was on about 2 days before. So we've incorporated those changes, and they've all worked kind of in a, I would say, a positive direction. So now on our average house valued or assessed at, not valued, at $250,000, the Minto share is just a little over $60 or $5 a month. And we blend that figure, the preliminary county, and we do know that the school board rates are not changing this year. The overall blended increase at this point is about 3.8%. And the overall Minto increase is just about 4.4, because again, even though our levy goes up, we're also benefiting from assessment growth during the year. So that's how they kind of partially cancel each other out anyway. So then later in this meeting, we'll have the detailed budget bylaw with the operating and capital components. You'll recall we can't really do the final tax rates until the county has completed their tax policies for ratios and assessment classes, and that's usually near the end of April, and then we'll probably ratify that once the county sets their rates, and that's usually near the end, or the policies usually the end of March, the rates at the end of April, and then we'll do our tax rating bylaw in early to mid-May. So that's the general anticipated schedule for the next few months.
It is quite the process.
It is. It doesn't happen overnight.
Okay, I will read the recommendation while you're thinking of questions. Because it's a pretty long recommendation too. Moved by Councillor Podnowitz, seconded by Councillor Gunson, that the Council of the Town of Minto hereby receives Report Finance 2024-25, the 2025 Operating and Capital Budget Adoption prepared by the Treasurer for information purposes. And further, that the 2025 current budget for the Town of Minto, excluding the compensation portion of Public Works Winter Control, as presented on November 5th, 2024, and amended on November 26th, 2024, be approved. And further, that the 2025 capital budget for the Town of Minto, as presented on November 26th, 2024, be approved. And further, that the Council of the Town of Minto considers passing the related bylaw in open session. Are there any questions? Councillor Zimmerman.
This is for Gord. So when we're talking about assessments on an average house at $250,000, pardon me,
Yes.
when are we going to start using like some relative numbers? Like where do you find a house for 250,000?
As I say, assess value. I totally feel your pain. I frequently comment and recommend. As you know, this is based on January the 1st, 2016, which is a long time ago. 9 years into the 4-year cycle. So you're totally accurate. And I even look at a property that the town has quite an interest in, and I looked at the actual cost of the addition, and then I see the assessed value coming in at much less than half, because we're in this whatever game where we say, there's a new house. What would that have been worth 9 years ago? And that's what we're into. And so that's why when I say the average assessed value, that is the average assessed value of houses. And that bears no resemblance because we had that big run up. And I know, I realize things have come down, but not by that much. So, unfortunately, we've moved away from market value assessment.
Yeah.
But that's what we kind of use. And because your maybe brand new house at 800,000 will get built and be assessed at 350. So, yeah.
Guess that's good for the new houses.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Anderson.
So further to that, what
Yes.
happens when they finally, sorry. What happens when they finally get the reassessments done and everybody all of a sudden is valued at the true value of
Yes.
the house or appraised value if they were selling the thing?
Yeah.
Everybody's taxes are gonna go up by,
No.
no.
So the overall revenue neutral, because say your assessment doubles, your tax rate would go down by half and your amount of taxes would be the same. But so the average house, that's what will happen to it. But we don't live in an average house. So some people will benefit because it's the rate of the assessment changes. So say the average house doubles, but maybe your house goes up 2.25 times, you're going to pay more. But maybe your house goes up by 1.5 times, your taxes go down. So yes, it makes no difference to our tax levy. It makes a big difference as to who's paying for it. And not just between residential, what about commercial versus industrial? And there's all these interplays. So that's why I think most financial people think it's a really bad idea to put off this reassessment because these inequities just continue and get worse every year. And it's pretty open-ended. There's no date is when they're actually going to do that reassessment. And remember a long time ago when they did the reassessment, that's how we got into the capping program because they tried to mitigate that and that brings its own inequities too. So
So when they finally do that, it's gonna be a huge cost to some people with houses. that have done
it could
improvements.
be, or it could be a big decrease to others too. So yes, overall, and that would be overall in the province, I'd imagine, it'll be neutral. But as I say, within that, ups and downs.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yes.
Mayor Turton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So since January 1st, 2016 until when? I mean, there's some of the newer houses being assessed, are they not?
They are, yeah,
Yes.
but they're assessed at the hypothetical value they would be if they had been constructed on January 1st of 2016.
Fun stuff. Any other questions? Now that we're all,
Crystal ball.
yeah, now that we're all,
Yeah.
what? All right, I am going to call the question. All in favor? Thank you, that carries. And I'll pass the chair back to the
Thank you.
mayor.
Okay, so I have a recommendation moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Elliott, that the 2025 current budget for the compensation portion of the Public Works Winter Control as presented on November 5th, 2024, and amended on November 26th, 2024 be approved. Is there anything that you want to add to that, Treasurer Duff?
No, Mayor Turton, on this particular item, there are no changes from what was discussed as far as November the 5th.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're moving into item 3, Clerk 2024-012, the City of Guelph EMS Agreement. And I'll ask our clerk, Annalee McRobb, to present the report.
Thank you very much, Mayor Turton. This is a very simple report being brought forward to you. As you know, the EMS uses a continued lease at 122 Robertson Street in Harrison, and they're looking to continue it for an additional 5 years. I reached out to their legal and they are requesting to do that. So this is just a quick report asking that they be able to continue their lease there.
So the recommendation is moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Gunson, that the Council of the Town of Minto hereby receives report clerk 2024-012, City of Guelph EMS agreement prepared by the clerk for information purposes, and further that an amending bylaw for the continued lease of 122 Robertson Street, Harrison, be considered during open session. Questions for our clerk? Hearing nothing, all in favor of the motion? That's carried. Thank you. Now we'll move into the bylaws, the appointment bylaw update, clerk 2024-013, and I'll ask our clerk, Mick Rob, to present, please.
Thank you again, Mayor Turton. This is just some minor adjustments being made to the appointment bylaw at this time, as well as the committee of adjustment for the alternate secretary treasurer. Just looking to make some minor changes. Again, I'll be looking at the appointment bylaw a little stronger in 2025 in accordance with our strategic plan to review council committees and subcommittees at that time. So at this time, it's just updating some names and clearing up some wording and you know, making different committees, like a committee of council. Now the DEI will be committee of council, as had been passed previously on the November 5th meeting. So again, it's just kind of a cleanup, and we'll be looking at a full review in 2025.
Okay, so the recommendation moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that the Council of the Town of Minto hereby receives report CL 2024-013, the appointment bylaw update prepared by the clerk for information purposes, and further that a bylaw reflecting the changes made to the appointment bylaw be considered during open session, and further that a bylaw reflecting the change to the committee of adjustment for the alternate secretary treasurer be considered during open session. Questions? All in favor of the motion? That's carried. Thank you. And we're into announcements. I'm going to ask Councillor Dirksen, would you mind?
Yeah, I would love to. I actually left a really important piece of paper on my. So what I was going to announce, I just won't have quite as much detail, is.
You want to phone a friend?
No. Nope. So December is actually Christian Heritage Month. And here in Minto, we have a lot of churches, and most of those churches are having services celebrating Christmas, either on there's a couple of churches. I know these two, so I'll name these two. So St. Thomas Roman Catholic Church is having a mass at, I won't name the time because I'm not positive, on Sunday evening, the 22nd of December, and the Christian Reformed Church in Palmerston is having a choir and candlelit service on the 22nd as well. That one is at 7 or 7:30. And then almost every church is having a Christmas Eve service, and at various times. And then also on Christmas Day, there are a couple of churches, and I think I can name them too. So that is St. Mary's Roman Catholic Church in Palmerston is having a morning mass on Christmas Day, and the CRC Church, Christian Reformed Church, is having a service at 10, I believe, on Christmas Day. So just to say that there are lots of opportunities for attending services. Oh, I missed United Church is the 22nd as well, with a choir in Harrison. But anyways, I had those all listed out, and so I'm kind of ticked off at myself that I don't have it exactly with me. But anyways, suffice to say, look around. There are services all over Minto, and so just encourage people to take part in that if they would like to.
Thank you, Councillor Dirksen. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Turton. So this Thursday, December 19th, the Senior Center for Excellence of Mapleton, Minto, and North Wellington is hosting a concert at 1 p.m. in the Mount Forest Legion, featuring the music of Steve and Martina Hayward, playing some old-time Christmas tunes. Free of charge, just show up. Can't beat that. And as Councillor Dirksen said, Sunday, The 22nd at the Harrison United Church at 7:30 is the annual Christmas cantata showcasing songs of joy. Tuesday, the 24th, also at the Harrison United Church, is the Christmas Eve service at 6:30. And then the really big one is the town of Minto and Minto Fire once again presenting Fire and Ice at the Palmerston Arena. This year is change of date is going to be a Sunday, December 29th from 6 until 8. And that's when the fantastic display of fireworks will start. There's absolutely something for everybody. So come on out.
Thank you, Councilor Zimmerman. Deputy Mayor Anderson.
Just a further announcement about the Christmas dinner. For those who don't know or may not have heard, it is happening Christmas Day. Takeout meals are available between 11:30 and 12:30. Sit-down dinner is at 1 o'clock. And we're encouraging people, if you know of somebody who'd be sitting by themselves, encourage them to come out, give them a ride, bring them with you. That's the goal of this, is to have people not sitting at home alone on Christmas Day. And all are welcome. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask our CAO to give a quick report. Mr. Derek Furton. Mr. Greg Furton. I don't know how I'm going to, so I apologize for that. I struggle with that. I have no idea why, because he doesn't look like Derek. He looks like Greg. So I apologize again, and I'm going to apologize in advance for the next time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make an announcement about, or the mayor asked me to make an announcement about some of the things that staff have been doing in the last week in the fury, it seems like. MPP Matthew Ray invited us as the town of Minto to present something in front of the Standing Committee on Finance and Economic Affairs as part of the 2025 pre-budget consultation process, a provincial pre-consultation process. And it was held in many places. They did a roadshow, but the roadshow closest to us was in Stratford. And so what we proposed as staff is to make a presentation on flood mitigation funding, or the lack thereof. And so we made a written submission. The written submission was due on Monday, and then the next day we received the notification that we were invited to go to Stratford to speak. So Mayor Turton and Chris Clark from Triton Engineering as well. I guess the mayor and Chris were on Zoom, but I was in person there in Stratford, and we made our presentation to the committee. Some interesting questions, and I'll be honest, it was a rather intimidating process. It's very regimented, and I hope sincerely that our request for flood mitigation project funding would be seriously considered at the provincial level. But they've been doing this roadshow for 4 or 5 days, and there are quite a number of requests through different municipalities on topics as rural healthcare, infrastructure needs, etc. So it was a great experience, and I just want to thank the mayor and Chris Clark for helping and for guiding that process, and for MPP Matthew Ray for allowing us the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Councilor Elliott, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm very proud to mention that our lights and Christmas decorations and holiday decorations, whatever you want to call it, I call it Christmas because it means that to me, throughout our town of Minto, surpass any community that we were around. It's just amazing what we've done, what our staff have done in cooperation with our volunteers. And I'm very, very proud and very excited about what we have in our community and how we continue to bring that forward. It's a great meeting at a great time of the year, and it's important for us to be involved in that, and our polls and our town and our nativity scenes. And just amazing. And I thank the staff and I thank the volunteers for coming forward and doing that for us.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Potovich, you were likely going to say something similar to that, but go ahead.
No, I wasn't. I was just gonna, I just wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and please support your local food banks, please.
Thank you, Councillor Benson.
Thanks, Mayor Turton. So the children are done school on Friday. And so starting Monday, December 23rd, if you're looking to get your children out of the house, Blessings to You Center has sponsored shinny and public skating at both arenas. And the dates are on the website. So basically Monday, Tuesday, and then Friday, the 27th starts up again for the 2 weeks. So it's not a babysitting service, but you can send your children to the arena for shinny and public skating. And thank you to Blessings to You Center for sponsoring that.
Thank you. Just a couple quick, I would like to thank you, Mr. Burtney. Forget about the Greg and Derek. It'll be Mr. Burtney for representing us at in Stratford for the pre-budget consultation. We appreciate the work that you did there. I know that it was thrown at you very quickly and you come out smelling like a rose. So thank you. And I know that I talked to MPP Ray and he said that you were amazing. So thank you. Second thing, I would just like to throw out there to our three local fire services, the work that they did for the town, for our three centers, the parades. I mean, there's a lot of work there. Those young men and women just kind of do it every year. They don't want or anything back. They just are a big part of our community. And so if you see one of them, make sure you thank them because they did yeoman work again and they just do it year after year. The other thing that the Minto Council float, somebody had to put that together. Not sure, 100% sure who did it yet. Was it Paul and Mike? But I'd like to thank them as well. So it's our best float ever. Third thing, coming up in February, put in your calendar, the North Wellington Big Brothers and Sisters Bowl-a-thon is coming. And the other thing I'd like to throw out there, February 22nd. I know that there's a coldest night of the year coming up, and I'm not sure whether that's February 22nd, but it's raising money for to support the hurt, the hungry, and the homeless in our community. It's going to be held in Hairston. It's going to be a 2.5 kilometer walk and or a 5, depends what you want. And so I'm not sure, Belinda, have we sent that out to council because we need to be putting in a team, a walking team?
So our DEI committee discussed this last Thursday, and they are going to be putting in a team, and the package is going to be attached to the minutes coming forth on January 7th. So council will get it then. But please feel free to visit the community center or community resource center website. You can find more information there. They're looking for 20 teams. They're up to 9. And the goal is to raise $20,000. So yes, the more the merrier.
And just because you don't get a sponsor, they're recommending that you do, you can still come out and walk. It's something new. There's quite a number of municipalities that are on the list, and it's a Canadian thing, correct? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Belinda. So moving right along. I've got a resolution moved by Councillor Potovich, second by Councillor Zimmerman, that the Committee of the Whole convene to regular council. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Resolutions. Resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Gunson, that the Council of Town of Minto ratifies the motion made in Committee of the Whole. All in favor of the motion? That's carried. Thank you. Bylaws. We have moved by Councillor Zimmerman, seconded by Councillor Dirksen, that bylaws 2024-068 through 2024-072 be read a first, second, and third time, passed in open council and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All in favor of the motion? It's carried. Thank you. Confirmatory. Moved by Counselor Gunson, second by Counselor Potnevitz, that bylaw 2024-073 to confirm actions to the Council Corporation of the Town of Minto respecting a meeting held December 17th, 2024, be read a first, second, third time, passed in open council and sealed with the seal of the corporation. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Adjournment. So tonight we're going to sing, and we're going to be led by Judy. Will we do the adjournment first and then sing, or
Yeah.
we'll do that? Okay. So I want everybody to sing up. So the adjournment resolution moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Dirksen, that the Council of Town of Minto adjourns to meet again at the call of the mayor. All in favor of the motion? That's carried. Thank you very much.
Okay, what would you like to sing then? Oh, okay. Okay, I think we're singing, we wish you Merry Christmas. That's what I'm assuming, but you know, one should never. But anyways, we wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, everybody.